The story behind the collapse of Easter Island is not what you think it is. Or is it? I know what you're thinking. It's well known that the destruction of Easter Island was self-inflicted. The islanders destroyed all of their trees to create their infamous statues, but were not wise enough to replant them, creating a lack of resources which caused famine, war, and cannibalism by the 1600s. The primary figure behind this narrative is a certain Jared Diamond, who has used this supposed story as a lesson for the world today and how we should stop the excessive exploitation of resources if we want to avoid a similar fate. The problem with this lesson is that it might not accurately represent what happened. Yes, the islanders of the Rapa Nui significantly decreased in population, declining to about 111 people by the late 19th century. Though this coincided with the destruction of their forests, Diamond's claim that the islanders were the cause of this is contentious. Based on what recent research has shown, including radiocarbon dating, the Rapa Nui were not in complete chaos when the Dutch first came to the island, with the islanders still building their infamous statues, the Moai, and the platforms upon which they stood, the Ahu. Sequencing genomes of today's islanders corroborates this evidence, as no genetic bottleneck matching a drop in population during the 1600s was found. But what else could have caused the population collapse? Well, a multitude of factors. The first were rats. Polynesians came to Easter Island during the 13th century, talented seafarers who could navigate the Pacific's dangerous waters. However, it's speculated that aboard the first boats were Polynesian rats, an invasive species that chewed on everything it could find. Without any natural predators on Easter Island, the rats reproduced and destroyed its palm trees over time, which led to the extermination of various species. The second factor were the outsiders themselves. During the era of exploration and colonialism, the Rapa Nui were not spared, with the Europeans exploiting the island's resources including its trees, and in the case of the British, the Moai. Contact with Europeans also introduced diseases like tuberculosis and smallpox, which killed significant portions of the population. So what about the Moai? Surely the creation of movement required a lot of wood. Not necessarily. Although it has long been theorized that the Moai were transported out of Ranuraraku quarry horizontally on logs placed side by side, many recent theories point to how they actually attached ropes to the sides of a vertical Moai, rocking it side by side to make it walk to the Ahu. This theory is corroborated by the Rapa Nui themselves, who have passed down the methods of transporting the Moai through generations of oral history. In fact, when asked by Europeans, the natives stated that the statues walked to the edges of the island, which was dismissed as myth. And yet, modern tests show that this method of walking was very much possible. If true, then this would have significantly decreased the amount of wood needed for the Moai's creation, and thus doesn't explain why the island was deforested. Overall, the collapse of society on Easter Island does not have a single obvious reason as to why. Although Diamond's theory has been influential and backed by some evidence, modern carbon dating has since shown that the Rapa Nui were alive and well when the Europeans came. Combined with historical evidence, this points to how other factors were in fact responsible for the destruction of the island's trees and the death of its population, with enslavement, resource exploitation, disease, and rats being brought from the outside. The Moai, on the other hand, likely did not require that much wood, and thus did not cause islanders to ravage their forests. But remember, this is simply theory. How do you think the Rapa Nui declined?